So good afternoon, everyone, and and happy Independence Day. Did you get enough rest? I'm very happy to see you all still attending class so diligently, even though it's a big day for your country. Okay, so let us start. So we'll continue in the second part of my talk, elaboration on vegetarianism. Okay, so abstaining from meat consumption in Mahayana accords with the Buddhist spirits of great compassion. The rules for renunciants in Buddhism originally was set up to adapt to the mendicant lifestyle of India at that time. Living under such conditions, monastics are not able to select the food they received and only consume what they are offered. This is the expedient means for monastic members to adapt to time and place. However, in the Buddha's compassionate mind, he would never regard the consumption of the free acceptable meats as a must. Therefore, we see the Buddha's true spirit is fully explained in the sutra such as Hastikasha Sutra, Agulimala Sutra, Lakavatara Sutra, Nirvana Sutra, and Surangama Sutra. In these Mahayana sutras, vegetarianism is clearly instructed. In these sutras, it is clearly stated that Buddhists must not eat meat. The allowance to consume the free acceptable meats is just an expedient means. Consuming meat kills the seeds of great compassion. People who kill intentionally for meat consumption are the family members of the Mara clans. Therefore, the Mahayana teachings on no meat consumption accords with the Buddha's spirit. This is not an idealistic statement, but a teaching and practice that is reasonable and realistic for the conditions. Although the monastics are living on alms for their livelihood at the beginning, as Buddhism spread and became popular, monastics received vast parcels of land from kings and lay devotees. Although the land was farmed and the food harvest was provided by lay devotees, the reality is that the harvest originally belongs to the monastics. In addition, some monastics gained long-term support from certain devotees, but still maintained the practice of seeking alms each day. So the original alms round where they went from one house to the next, that is randomly showing up at homes for alms in which sometimes they had food and sometimes they had nothing, began to change. Under such new circumstances, where monastics can choose their food, if a bhikkhu still consume meat under such circumstances, that is definitely for the sake of indulging in what is delicious. How could we consider his actions as not breaking the precepts set by the Buddha? Therefore, when the Mahayana became widespread, there is a strong promotion to abstain from eating meat. Another similar example is the monastery of Chinese Buddhism, where monastics live in a lifestyle of working their own fields, purchasing their own things, and cooking their own food. If the monastics of China consume meat, how can they not breaking the precepts established by the Buddha? Even the Vinaya of the Sravakayana would not allow it, not to mention the Mahayana. Some monastics want to eat meat, so they mention examples of monastics from Sri Lanka, Myanmar, etc., consuming meat. They use these as explanations, saying it is fine for monastic in China to eat meat. this kind of talk is an excuse to satisfy self-desire, which is not true, irresponsible, and nonsense. The reason why Mongolian and Tibetan Buddhists eat meat. The Buddhist practitioners in Mongolia and Tibet also eat meat. These countries, they mainly focus on raising animals. So inner areas of India and China are largely agricultural based. So their main food source comes from cow and goats. Under such situations, being vegetarian is not easy at all. Therefore, just like the situation of alms begging, where monastics can have threefold acceptable meat, Mongolian and Tibetan Buddhist consumption of meat also does not break the precept of no killing if they do not kill the animal themselves or instruct others to kill it for their consumption. Another key reason why these Mongolian and Tibetan Buddhists eat meat is that the Buddhism in Mongolia and Tibet is dominated by the esoteric Buddhism, which is different to the Sravakayana and the Mahayana Buddhism. In Mahayana Buddhism, on one hand, the goal of Buddhahood that the practitioners esteem and aspire to, and the great practice that bodhisattvas develop are based on great compassion and wisdom, and are manifested through gentleness, tolerance, and compassion. All these qualities especially reflect the virtue of loving kindness and compassion. As these practitioners regard the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as their role model for practice and have specific emphasis on loving kindness and compassion, abstaining from eating meat is naturally a precept practice for the followers of Mahayana Buddhism. In the exoteric Buddhism, on the other hand, the objects that practitioners esteem and venerate as protectors are in form of wrathful beings, lustful raksha or yakshas, which is said to be the manifestation of a Buddha or bodhisattvas. In esoteric, practitioners regards the Vrajas, who belongs to the deities of the 33 heavens, as their ideal. So these practitioners develop the visualization that they themselves are the Vajras, which is called the divine pride, also the Buddha pride. This is to learn and undertake the practices of yaksha and rakshas and aim to accomplish the Raja body of a yaksha. However, yaksha and rakshas always drink blood and eat meat, cruelly injuring humans and harming the lives of human beings. They also commit bad deeds and adultery. In the sutras of Sravakayana and Bodhisattva's vehicles, there is a mention of subduing them, teaching and guiding them. So they no longer drink blood and eat flesh, stay away from incestuous lifestyle, stop killings or living beings, and protects Buddhism. In contrast, the teachings in them instruct the practitioners to learn from them and take them as the exemplars. As a result, these practitioners learn their ways of consuming meat. Given these yakshas and rakshas are their role models, the practitioners accordingly have to eat meat. It is said that eating meat is very helpful to the practice of sexual union in the unsurpassable yoga. From the aspects of environment, Buddhist consumptions of meat in Mongolia and Tibet is an unavoidable situation. From the aspect of faith, it is the freedom of choice that they aspire to learn the Vajra practice. Like the yaksha ways of consuming flesh and blood, and say this is one of the Buddhist or Bodhisattva's manifestations. What more can we say? It is definitely improper that we, according to Bodhisattva's practices of compassion and being gentle, criticize the practice where one regards yaksha and raksas as their varied objects, the image that they want to become or they want to attain. So nevertheless, our humble opinions is that we hope to use the Bodhisattva's practice to guide and transform yakshas. We do not approve of using esoteric practices to behave the same as yakshas. To sum up, according to the environments and religious beliefs, Buddhist practitioners in the Mongolia and Tibet whose consumption of meat must not be criticized or imitated. However, if exoteric Buddhism spreads to the farm areas of inner China and the habits of eating meat still develop such that practitioners in this region must have meat, then this is problematic. If the Buddhist practitioners of Chinese Buddhism want to learn the Vajra way of consuming flesh and blood, looking upon the yakshas and rakshas as their example, then there is not much else we can do apart from pity them. We can only hope that the world does not become like the world of yakshas and rakshas. So fallacious arguments of the meat eaters. However, there are more and more strange theories from meat eaters who are influenced by Mongolian and Tibetan Buddhism. Some say that to overcome attachments to fixed ideas, it is a must to consume meat when practicing to practice the exoteric Buddhism. In fact, this world is full of carnivores that are not willing to become vegetarians. Why do these practitioners not help carnivores overcome their attachment to meat, but just entice the few who do practice vegetarianism to eat meat? What kind of logic is that? Does this mean that exoteric Buddhism is only intended to teach the small numbers of vegetarians to overcome attachments? Another argument is that eating meat is for the sake of liberating that animal. According to what these people say, praying for the cattle and sheep will form the causes and conditions for liberation of these animals. If they do this for the sake of helping and guiding them to liberation, then why do they not want to liberate their parents and children? And why do they not eat their parents and children? Is there a better way to save and liberate their parents and children? Then what about saving and liberating other sentient beings such as centipedes, toads, maggots, and roundworms? Why do they not eat them? All these fallacious claims from the pro-meat eaters are in vain. Let's be frank. It is because they want to eat meat that they use the excuse of liberating the animal. And it is certainly not the case they eat meat for the sake of liberating them. Some of the Chinese Buddhists who neither lives in the place that raise animals nor practice exoteric Buddhism use the meat consumption of Mongolian and Tibetan Buddhists as reasons for their meat-eating habits. How pitiful and ridiculous this is. Okay, the issues of meat consumption in Japanese Buddhism. Japanese Buddhism descends from Chinese Buddhism, but from the past up until now, apart from the Yin-Shun sect, the other sects' headquarters still lives a vegetarian lifestyle. Since the Yin-Shun monastics started to have wives and eat meat, the other sects start to follow. And Japanese Buddhism gradually lost touch with the Chinese Buddhism. There are monastics in the Japanese Buddhism, but most are not ordained or have taken monastic precepts. We can say that Japanese Buddhism is lay person's Buddhism. Instead of saying that Japanese Buddhism surpasses the monastic order of the Shravaka vehicle and enter the lay people-based Bodhisattva vehicle, it is better to say it is retreated from the Shravaka monastic lifestyle to the secular life of the ordinary human vehicle. When Japanese Buddhists consume meat, we should not use a strict or lofty standard to criticize them. Elaboration on practicing the spirit of protecting lives from the aspects of environments and spiritual capacity. Protecting sentient beings is the core spirit of the Buddha Dharma, which is a consistent principle. But when putting it into practice, it must be appropriate for the environments and one's spiritual capacity. From the perspective of the environments, it may be that because of the alms-begging lifestyle that monastics eat the free acceptable meats as the provisional practice, or it may be the monastics consume meat because of living in the areas that predominantly raise animals as food source. As long as the monastic do not kill the animal themselves, do not instruct others to kill, and these animals are not killed for them directly, then eating meats under these conditions does not break the precept of no killing. However, monastics in China who buy and cook their own food, if they eat meat, then no matter what, they are breaking the precepts of killing. The environment has its specific conditions which cannot be treated the same way. It means a blanket rules cannot be applied to all situations. In the Buddha Dharma, great compassion and the protection of life is always the highest ideal. So we must not attach to the provisional ways and oppose the ultimate practice. In terms of one's spiritual capacity, if people truly have a Mahayana roots and want to learn Mahayana practices, then they must not eat meat and nurture their great compassion. Those of the Sravakayana spiritual capacity, the Buddha taught the provisional practice that allowed consumption of the free acceptable meats. For those whose spiritual capacity is of an ordinary follower, they have never aspired to leave this world, let alone the Bodhi vow. Nonetheless, they will aspire to the human and heavenly vehicle of the Buddha Dharma. And for these people, apart from abstaining from killing human beings, if they hurt or kill animals and eat them, even though these actions are wrong and impure, they should not criticize them harshly. This is because, although what they do is impure and in error, this has been a common situation during the process of cyclic existence since time without beginning. The reason is since time without beginning, all sentient beings have been cycling from life to life ignorantly. Sentient beings have always been living this way. So in order to guide people towards the Buddha Dharma, we should try to encourage the practice of vegetarianism on the 1st and 15th days of the lunar month, or on the 6 special days during each month. So the 6 fasting days, or for a short period. These kinds of practices can be the preparative means to head towards the advanced practices of the Buddha Dharma. In other words, for Buddhists that always consume meat, rather than stopping them from eating meat at once, maybe it's better to use skillful means and gradually guide them to become vegetarian. Chinese Buddhists are used to the idea of vegetarianism and often misunderstand that it is a must for Buddhists to be vegetarian. Therefore, they have contemptuous and slanderous attitudes towards Buddhists who consume meat. This is not only makes non-vegetarian afraid of practicing Buddha Dharma, it also creates negative and heretical reactions from meat eaters towards vegetarianism. In the writing of Venerable Lian-Ci's Abstinence of Killing and Release of Living Creatures, it mentioned that people in the world eat meat and take it for granted that it is a natural thing to do. So they kill animals arbitrarily, accumulating a lot of karma. This habit is passed down by generation to generation, imitating each other. It has become a vulgar custom without knowing that it is not correct. All sentient beings are not of the same build. It is a strange thing that people eat meat. However, those who don't think strange are because their families have been accustomed to it for generations, and because their neighbors imitate each other. So it has become a bad habit. If cannibalism is practiced now, everyone will be shocked and urgently demand severe punishment. Why? It's simply because we are not used to it. But if we are used to eating the meat of other animals, it is considered normal. So that is why Venerable Lian-Ci wept bitterly and sighed deeply and told us not to do the following. Oops. Okay, birthday should be free from killing. Parents give birth to us, feed us, and support us through their lives. Honoring our parents is the basic morality of being humans. So the moment when we are born was the time when our mother were on verge of death. So on this day, we should be abstaining from killing. Practice fasting and do good deeds. Only in this way can the deceased parents be reborn in a good realm and the blessings of the surviving parents be increased and their lives be prolonged. If we kill living beings, it will bring disasters to our parents and it will not benefit ourselves and our descendants. So when the baby is born, the family should not kill a living beings for food to celebrate. It is human nature to feel sad when they are childless and happy when they have children. So the same is true for the animal kingdom. How would one celebrate the birth of one's children by killing others' children? Babies are just born. So instead of accumulating virtue to benefit them, parents kill animals and create karma. Isn't it too stupid? One should not kill when making an offering to ancestors. This is a Chinese tradition. People will bring food to the tomb as offering for the ancestors. We should refrain from killing for offering on anniversary for the ancestors' death, and during the spring or the autumn festivals for paying tribute to our ancestors. Using killing to pay homage to the dead is adding the karma of the dead. So even if is like to put the food like on the table, or you really respect them, but how can the dead enjoy them? A wise man would not do that. So bloody meat may not be precious. Well, you can offer like fruits, vegetables, and the food they like, and those are not bad as well. So as the descendants, the most important thing is to do what they have to do is to cultivate oneself prudently, so as not to break the virtues of the ancestors. This is the best offer. And one should not kill during wedding ceremonies. In preparing a wedding, think how many animals will be killed. Marriage in the beginning of the continuation beginning of the continuation to the next generation, and killing life at the beginning of life is contrary to morality and ethics. Besides, a wedding is supposed to be a happy ceremony, something to be joyful and celebrated too. So why wouldn't it be too tragic and unlucky to commit murders on that day? Ordinary people who get married wish to be able to grow old together, and so do animals. For those whose daughters got married, they keep the red candles lit continuously for 3 days before the parents miss their daughters. One feels suffering when being separated from family members. Do you think that animals will feel happy when they have to be with their family? So don't kill. One should not kill when having a banquet. In good times, the virtuous host, the noble guests and friends are served with vegetarian dish. Isn't it refreshing and elegant? Why kill so many lives, making it so extravagant, while animals are waiting on the chopping board during the slaughter? You can still take this kind of food out of, can you still eat this kind of food out of this cruelty? If you know that the food on the plate comes from the mournful cry on the chopping board, would you still be able to swallow it, making it bitterness as you bliss? Can't you feel sad about it? We should not kill when we pray. When people are ill, or they often kill animals to make offerings to God, praying for protection. But think about it. Killing a life to prolong another life. It is against the law of nature. Is there anything more serious than this? Only a righteous person can become a god. God never showed favoritism. The result was that my life was not prolonged, but the killing karma was become deeper, larger, expanding. So those who kill life will have a short life. So it is opposite of what you try to do. So excessive prayers to God, such as killing lives as offerings, wishing for children, killing lives for higher office positions, killing lives for wealth, etc. Even if you have children, good career, and wealth, it is still the blessing from your previous life. It has nothing to do with the ghosts and the gods. So if you do believe in ghosts and gods because of this, and you have no doubt in the ghosts or gods, then you have wrong views, and it will become more and more serious, and it's going to go onto the bad track. You should not kill to make a living. People in the world go hunting, fishing, or butchering for food and clothing. In my opinion, you can survive without doing these industries. Killing all live beings will lead to death in misfortune. all the causes and effects of hell caused by all kinds of killing karma will be the root cause of the evil retribution in the next life. Why not seek other livelihoods? There is a story. There are butchers who specialize in slaughtering sheep. And when he was dying, he bleated like a sheep. There was also a man who sold eels. And when he died, there are some sort of clear marks on his head of eel bites, but he was never attacked by them in his lifetime. So these are real stories. Therefore, I sincerely advise people in the world, do not kill or commit killing for a livelihood. When I was a child, I lived with my grandmother because my parents had to work full-time. I went to do shopping with my grandmother every day. And there was a fresh market selling livestock and seafood. And my family was not vegetarian, and my grandmother bought fresh food from the market. There was a store selling fish. The owner sold good products and he was honest. He was doing good business. It was a family business. So the father and the son were working together. And I remember there was a young man who always say hi to me, and all the people living in the area buy fish from there. Later, when I grew up into a teenager, I went to live with my grandmother during a long holidays, and I went shopping with her. I like to greet the people I used to know in the market. I went to the fish store, but I could not find the people who used to run it. So I asked my grandmother, where is the young guy and his family? What happened to them? And my grandmother said, the young man was ill with cancer, and he later took refuge in the Triple Gem and became a Buddhist. And his family also become Buddhist. He truly believes in Buddha Dharma, and for the sake of his health, the family also quit killing for livelihood. So they closed their business and changed their job. So from this story, we can see that if we believe in Buddha Dharma and are willingly to change, we can still do it. And I'm sure all family members will have a better future because they follow Buddhist teachings. They have saved themselves and also have saved uncountable lives. That is wonderful, isn't it? So, okay. So maybe non-vegetarians are used to eating meat or cannot let go of the indulgence of delicious taste. So they make up all sorts of reasons and theories to say it is acceptable to eat meat. Some even claim they must eat meat. They not only claim that practicing the Buddha Dharma can eat meat, but also against vegetarianism, claiming that it is reasonable and correct to eat meat and opposing vegetarianism using various arguments are all theories that are incorrect. It is hoped that those who cannot quit eating meat and persuade others to eat meat stop slandering the truths and creating unwholesome deeds. Friends, these are the false arguments that cut off the causes for attaining Buddhahood. It is not a must to be vegetarian, but it is good to be vegetarian. Let me share my story with you. I grew up in a Buddhist family, but I did not take refuge in the Triple Gem until I worked in society. My mom is a devoted Buddhist. My dad was diagnosed that he had kidney cancer. Once my mom heard about this, she immediately made a vow to be vegetarian. She hoped the merits of being vegetarian would lead to killing fewer lives, and that would help my dad's treatment and extend my dad's lifespan. My dad had a successful operation, and the cancer cells were removed, and he recovered well. And after my dad's recovery, I thought it is time for me to take refuge in the Triple Gem. After I became a Buddhist, I have greater interest in learning the Buddha Dharma. I started to read the sutras, participate in praying services in the temple, and so on. I even became a volunteer in the temple. I know that in the Buddha Dharma, having great compassion is very important, because without great compassion, there will be no bodhisattvas and Buddhas. From my knowledge, only a small proportion of Buddhists are vegetarians. Buddhists are allowed to consume the 3 kinds of acceptable meat. So I think that being a Buddhist is not so difficult. I understand that being a vegetarian has many benefits towards our practice and for our health. But I love the taste of meat a lot. I like all sorts of meat cuisines, and I keep telling myself there is no way for me to become vegetarian. In 2009, October, there was a new staff joining my work team. She is a vegan and an activist for animal protection. She joined a lot of protests and activities for that purpose. We often have lunch together in the staff room. And one day she asked me, "I thought you are a Buddhist. Why are you still eating meat?" I explained to her that in Buddhism, we have our free choice. We do not have to be vegetarian. And she said, "How can you talk about compassion when you're eating the meat of an animal?" At that time, I do feel a bit uncomfortable because she had been too direct. And then I had the feeling that if I eat meat, I'm not a good Buddhist. Later in November 2009, the abbot of a New Zealand temple said to me, "You have been a good girl and have become a Buddhist for a few years. So what's your plan? You should improve further. What sort of practice do you do daily? And are you a vegetarian?" I told her that I do recite sutras and recollect the Buddhist names when I was on a bus traveling to work, but I'm not a vegetarian. And she looked at me seriously and said, "You should improve yourself. Take a step ahead and become vegetarian. Otherwise, you cannot go a step further on the path to Buddhahood." And she went on, "Think about this seriously, okay?" After that, I keep thinking about this. I do want to improve and practice well on the path to Buddhahood. I start thinking about methods to make this happen. What I mean is to live as a vegetarian in my lifetime. How can I achieve that? How can I avoid the desire for food I used to love? How can I keep my promise for a lifetime? I did try to find the right way so that I can do this properly. I certainly remember a story from a venerable who came to teach Buddha Dharma each year from Indonesia. She told us that she went to study in the Taiwan Buddhist Institute when she was a teenager. After studying for some time at the Buddhist Institute, she made up her mind and wanted to be a Buddhist nun. But even though she had already been staying at the Buddhist Institute, she still loved meat and wanted to consume meat. So at that time, I was shocked because I thought everyone living in a monastery or studying at the Buddhist Institute, even if they are still lay people, must be a full-time vegetarian. She stared at me and said, it is not a problem, because she could buy snacks and meat when she had a day off from school. At that time, she was still very young, about 16 years old. So on one night before she was going to get shaved the next day, she still wanted to eat meat. So her teacher at that time used skillful means to help her, because her favorite food is hamburgers. So to help her to satisfy her desire and quit meat, her teacher bought her many hamburgers and told her to eat them all. She was extremely happy to eat her favorite beef burger, It was so tasty for the first few burgers, but later, the more she ate, she felt sick about it, and she ended up vomiting even on seeing a hamburger. So she exclaimed, "Oh, I have had enough. I will not eat any meat and I won't miss it." So I sort of used her method. I told myself I got to give myself time. So I made up my mind. I would be vegetarian starting from the 1st of January in the year 2010. And before that, I had 1 month to get what I like for the last time. So I told myself this is the last time. And after that, I will not eat meat. And it works for me. I bid farewell to the food I like and kept my promise and become a vegetarian. This step helped me a lot in my progress on the Bodhi path, because in the year 2011, I decided to leave my family and studied at the Buddhist Institute. I remembered when we had holiday, some of our classmates who were Buddhist nuns worried about me. They were worried that I could not stand the temptation and eat meat again, but I told them I would not. Some family members and friends asked me, "Vegetarian dishes are not that tasty. How can you keep your promise to be vegetarian? Are you sure you do not want to eat meat? Will you regret it? How I can do this?" They thought it is too hard. And I told them firmly that I would not miss it. I told them I remember the taste, but I will never eat them again because I made my promise and I don't want to, and I do not have the desire to eat meat again. I feel happier and healthier after I become a vegetarian. In the past, my stomach was often upset and it made me feel dizzy and nausea. But after I became vegetarian, I do not have that problem anymore. I do not feel guilty because I stopped killing lives. I do not owe any debts to any beings because I eat and harm them. Because if I eat and harm them in this life, they will do the same on me in the future. So this also creates difficulties and obstacles for the practice on the Bodhi path. So I think we can all be vegetarians if we really want to. I think each person is unique and his or her conditions are not the same as others. Some can immediately quit meat while some cannot. So if you want it, you should find a way that suits you best. After being a vegetarian, you can remind yourself that you have already made a promise and you can do it. You are strong and you can keep your promise. Okay, now I'd like to introduce you an artist that promotes vegetarianism and saving lives. Feng Zikai was an influential Chinese painter, artist, and intellectual who made strides in the fields of music, art, literature, philosophy, and translation. He was also a famous lay Buddhist of the 20th century China. He made paintings that depicted children and the multi-volume collections of Buddhist-inspired art, paintings for preservation of life. He was the student of Venerable Hong-Yi. So in his book, My Children, he said, "In these recent years, my heart has been occupied by four things: deities and stars in the sky, as well as art and children on human earth. My children, who resemble swallows, shares the deepest destiny with us, with me, and possess equal standing with deities, stars, and the arts in my heart." And in his other book, Arts and Sympathy, he said, "The real artist must be in complete emotional communion with this object or person depicted to share their joy and sorrows, their tears and laughter. If you take up the brush but lack these all-embracing sympathetic heart, then you will never be a true artist." In the Foguangshan Monastery, they also converted Feng Zikai's painting for the preservation of life into religious murals that decorate the walkways to the museum. So in his work, Mother's Bunk evokes a sense of sadness and highlights the cruelty of those who indulge in excessive fish consumption. If the fish in the painting were to be replaced by humans, the impact will be even more shocking. Mr. Feng's comics may seem simple at first glance, with just a picture of two live fish and a skeleton of a dead fish. However, his incredible brushwork always managed to bring out the beauty in the simplest thing. Adding the title to his painting adds a whole new depth for the piece. For example, he named this painting Mother's Bones. It would immediately invoke strong emotion in the viewers, leaving them both shocked and deeply saddened. In this painting, there were two live fish and one dead fish. Interestingly, there is no person shown in the painting, but it implies that there is someone who finished eating a fish. The painting tells a story of a greedy individual who loved eating fish and caused the miserable scene depicted. The offender remains invisible, but the readers can imagine the look of the satisfaction and pleasure on the face as they indulge tasting the delicious fish dishes. It is a thought-provoking painting that leaves a lot to imagination. So it is one of the characteristics of Mr. Feng's comics to assign titles to the comics, taking a simple cartoon as an example. The concise text of the painting titles complements and highlights the meaning of the painting. This is the success of his cartoon. It is touching. The fish bones in the painting represent human beings feeding on all living beings. Although human beings and animals have different bodies, they are both sentient beings who are aware of pain and suffering. Human eating fish consume their meat is considered as fratricide according to Buddha Dharma. After finished eating the fish, the man threw the fish bones into the river, and it was discovered by two passing live fish. Hey, what's the familiar smell? Isn't that the smell of the mother who suddenly disappeared? Oh no, dear mother, how would you become like this? It turned out that you carelessly swallowed the bait and were caught, cut and cooked, and the meat were gone and leaving behind only bones. Ho, 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 poor mother. You have always warned us to be careful. Now you've been fooled by human beings. But why are you so careless this time? So humans can eat other things, but they choose to eat fish. So a living fish becomes a skeleton in a short time. So these two river fishes who lost their mother cannot do anything, but only a sign of grief. Okay, so in this work, the fish living in the water and humans dying in the water. The bait-eating fish is hooked and the one who stumbles goes into water. Fish feed on the drowned and humans consume the fish. What a pity. People do not understand this. So it was a poetry of watching fish written by a monk Zhongling in Ming Dynasty. This cartoon depicts the scene of people eating fish and fish eating people. It is a bit shocking. People eat fish because they need to fill their stomach, and in addition to satisfy their desire for delicious meals and cooking skills. For example, they pay attention how to cook the fish head, how to fry the fish body, and how to cook the fish in egg styles, etc., using different cooking methods with experience and different ingredients and cooking time. What they want is a tasty square meal. Fishing, fish farming, and eating fish has been taken for granted since ancient times. Very few people feel this is cruel, so they just keep on doing it. Our ancestors were primitive and we are civilized. The way of eating fish, cooking, or utensils or cooking methods may be different, but there is still one thing in common. We are both taking the life of other things and killing them. We treat them as food. We can buy it from the marketplace or hunt it. We do not see food as living beings, sentient beings which have feelings and sufferings. As shown in the picture, people are eating fish with a smile on their face. It seems that the fish on the plate is delicious. But when this person is happily enjoying the food, he must not have come across the thought that this fish live in a great river or in a sea. How many people have drowned in the water? Nor has he thought how many sailors or travelers died in the sea and were buried in the sea. Back to nature, not to mention the local custom. People are buried in the holy river after death, or cremated ashes or unmelted remains are emptied in the river and drifted in the water. These remains and bones have become food for the fish. This kind of cycle may allow fishermen to catch the fish that has eaten the human flesh. So this fish is then sold to the market, bought and cooked at home, and let the gourmets who enjoy delicious fish dishes indirectly eat human flesh. The human would turn into the human will turn into the world of cannibalism. Think about this, creepy, right? So how can one swallow another bite? So Feng Zikai chose this poem for his paintings, and the picture itself is quite scary. Together, indeed, it becomes something of a work of making us shocking. So the human life and the fish life are both lives. Under the circumstances of ignorance, human and fish are feeding on each other. So this is happening endlessly, which is a terrible misfortune. So this is another work that he depicted. You see this hairy man is eating, is trying to butcher an animal. The animal, why we thought it's an animal? Because the animal's got hair, it's got the skin with hairs, and we thought we can eat them. But look at the human, the person that killing the animal. He also got the hair on his body. So this artist tried to do the comparison. We are both sentient beings, but why one can kill the others? And this is another work. So another work, like the mother deer is following the hunters. So the hunters have a compassion and give them back its children. So we think about it. If we hurt and eat each other, we shall be creating more unwholesome deeds in our short life. So the best thing we should do is to cultivate the free firm dharmas together, so that humans and beasts will not be taking advantage to each other. The free firm dharma is a practice method of Buddha Dharma. We should practice the free firm dharmas. Let us have a look about it. The first, contemplate on body firmly. The second, contemplate on life firmly. And the third, contemplate on wealth firmly. If we observe ourselves in this way, we can stay away from the unwholesome deeds, from body, speech, and the twisting mind, and practice with upright mind. Contemplate on body. It is said that body is a combination of 4 elements. It is dangerous and fragile. The body is not solid. Birth and death are impermanence, and it cannot last for a long time. If you can keep the 5 precepts, be pure and undefiled, and practice the supreme way of body, then we can achieve the amending body. Contemplate on life. It is said that the fate that people receive, although their lifespan varies, are like dreams. Their body are not solid. Their spirit are unpredictable. And so they cannot be preserved for a long time. If we can understand the Four Noble Truths, practice the Dharma, then we can transcend from life and death. Then we can achieve ultimate wisdom. Contemplate on wealth. It is said that all worldly properties is not solid. Gathering and will gone because of impermanent, and it cannot be preserved for a long time. If we practice giving and purify our mind, then supreme peace and bliss of nirvana is our solid wealth that will never be damaged. Venerable Hong-Yi also quoted in a poem. He said, "Our lives are short. It is similar to lighting in the sky and morning dew. So we should take care of each other's and have sympathy to each other. If we practice the free firm dharmas, both humans and beasts will no longer will have no negative consequences." This quote reminds us that human beings should value our lives and the lives of other sentient beings, and we should protect them, should refrain from killing them, and should cultivate the concept of compassion. So these are more works, but because of time, I'm just going to quickly skip about it. So this to make this fabric, they have to kill a lot of lotus for the silk. So it's with one cloth, you have to kill many silkworms. And in this picture, a child tried to stop his father killing a chicken. And this is all Feng Zikai's painting. This one is the mother goat saying goodbye to its little goat because it knows it's going to die. So it's very sad. And this one, the little one is begging the farmer not to kill her mother. And this one say they are friends. And one day this friend visit his friends and they're going to have dinner. But this friend told his friend, "Please don't kill the chicken. I am a vegetarian." And it is painting this person free the fish because he had a dream before night. And he had a dream that the fish say she got many eggs with her. She's going to have 1,000 children. If you kill me, you will kill all my children. So at last, we can't, nobody is perfect. But, if we make mistakes, we can correct what we did wrong and repentance. So as long as we wear kindness in mind, everything that we touch in the universe will become beautiful. Okay, it's about time. So we'll make a stop and we finish the talk now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This was excellent, Venerable.
Amitofo. Thank you.